You've heard the statement, why would I need the 4K? I already have the Blu-ray. But today we're going to be talking about some of the Blu-rays that look terrible that need a 4K transfer. Let's get into it. What is up, everybody? Yes, today we're going to be talking about some Blu-rays that I have in my collection that look so bad and that we need a 4K remaster, a restoration, anything like that, a well-done, proper restoration, because I am sick and tired of these old Blu-ray transfers that look terrible, that have really bad film, elements, and it's all dirty and it's all mixed up. We need a proper 4K, but some of these aren't that bad. Especially for one of them, but for the most part, these all have terrible Blu-ray transfers. Starting off with THX 1136, 38, 36. I always get it messed up. THX 1138. Sorry, sometimes I get the things messed up. One, because the Blu-ray is pretty mediocre, and two, it's George Lucas's first ever film. I was expecting a 4K announcement, you know, when we had the George Lucas 50th, Lucasfilm's 50th anniversary kind of lineup of like action figures and Star Wars stuff. I was hoping we'd get some announcements from that, but unfortunately we don't have it, which is crazy. It's one of my favorite George Lucas films. You know, for how legendary George Lucas is, we really need this film to be kind of premiered as a 4K transfer. Same with Fear and Desire from Kino Lorber. That Blu-ray, it looks decent, but I want that 4K just to symbolize it, just to have that available option for one of, you know, for these great filmmakers, for their first film to be idolized in the 4K format, because, you know, the first film is a lot. It means a lot to a lot of filmmakers. It's where they started. It's where they came from. It's when they didn't have all of these kind of pressures on themselves, when they were able to be as creative as possible to tell the stories that they wanted to before Hollywood kind of tarnished their legacy or kind of made them feel ill towards the whole filmmaking aspect, even though I know a lot of people take a lot of great things from Hollywood, and, you know, but you know what I'm saying? Like, the first film is a lot, you know, it's a really grandiose thing. It's a very monumental thing. So I feel like THX 1138, Fear and Desire, add that into, should get maybe Hard 8. I know that recently got a Blu-ray, but a 4K would be nice too. But yeah, so THX 1138. Next is the one we need on 4K. It is the Bond films. I want all of the Bond films. Now, I know there's been the Daniel Craig collection, and that's been cool, but hopefully we get more of the Pierce Brosnan era, and definitely the Sean Connery era. Those are my second favorite era, besides the Daniel Craig, because I know we're giving a lot to Daniel Craig, and those are the newer films, but a lot of the older films would look absolutely fantastic, filmed in Technicolor, all that stuff. Those 60s films, those 70s films look absolutely beautiful in 4K, and mainly because I had that 50-year anniversary, the 50 years of Bond or whatever, the 50 years of Bond box set. Not this newest one, this Blu-ray one, because I'm not going to pay $170 for a Blu-ray box set. I want the 4Ks of them, and that looked terrible. The 50th anniversary looks absolutely garbage. You know, one of the worst Blu-rays I've ever seen in my life was the GoldenEye Blu-ray from the 50th anniversary edition. That looks absolutely god-awful. Like, it looks worse. Like, it looks like a VHS. Not even DVD. VHS quality. So, we need those, you know, especially for how popular Bond is and how, you know, segmented or cemented the Bond films are in pop culture, especially when it comes to cinema, British cinema, that kind of thing. It needs a 4K transfer, and I don't know what's taking so long. I think people are like, who cares about the old Bond films? Those are for old people, and they're okay with Blu-ray. But I'm not old. I'm 22 years old, so I need that 4K treatment. Could get the HDR. Imagine that Dolby Vision HDR for 60s films with fantastic filmmaking skills, with Technicolor, all that stuff. That look beautiful. And I'm still scratching my head thinking why we don't have those yet. It's the Bond films. It's one of the biggest film franchises of all time. Yet we have some of these other film franchises that have 4Ks that are absolutely god-awful. Like, what the hell? Come on, guys. Get your shit together. Who is it? Warner Brothers? Universal? Whoever? Do a 4K, please. I'll buy the shit out of that. I'll buy it day one. I don't even care about FOMO. I'll skip it for 5 months. No, I'll buy it day one, because I absolutely love those films, and I need it in 4K. Another one of my favorite films that got a terrible Blu-ray release is the Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. Absolutely fantastic Western. If you haven't seen that yourself, you're doing yourself a disservice. One of my favorite kind of American style Western films. I mean, you can't go wrong. Robert Redford, Paul Newman in a Western movie in the 60s. How is this not already in 4K? Now, I do know that it's owned by 20th Century Fox, which means it'll be a Blu-ray thing. I mean, which means it'll be a Disney thing, which I don't know. I don't know if Disney's going to commit to those 4Ks for films that they know they're not going to make millions and millions of dollars off of. I know they're doing 4K releases for, you know, certain films that are paste, you know, those films that aren't from the Marvel catalog or not from the Star Wars catalog. We've gotten things like Last Duel, even though that was a new release, but we've gotten things like Heat, but that's been delayed a shit ton. A lot of 20th Century Fox things. I'm so sad that they sold to Disney, not because of the you know, just the different creative heads that are a part of Disney, but because of the publishing rights and restoration factors of the of 20th Century Fox. I know Fox has a lot of really bad history of just getting rid of their film prints because they don't give a shit about them anymore. Literally burning the film prints from films of the silent era when I think it was in the 40s or 50s, when they just burned a bunch of their films for no fucking reason, because like, oh, who is going to watch an older film? You know, it's only from, you know, 1920s, 1930s. No one cares about that. You can't hear it. It's not in color. People like us care about it, okay? So Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, throw all of those pre-80s and before, all of those Fox films. Tora would be fantastic. The Longest Day, those kind of films. We need all of those 60s, 70s, 80s, not even 40s and 50s. We need all of those Fox films on 4K. But we probably won't get it. Maybe an iTunes transfer, but we won't get like a really nice physical release unless it's like the biggest of biggest films, which is sad because probably Fox still owned the rights to their films. They probably would have published it by now because, you know, they kind of cater to that demographic. Disney on the other hand, probably not so much, which is very saddening. Another Blu-ray transfer from one of the biggest filmmakers of all time, Martin Scorsese, Gangs in New York. I bought this on Blu-ray a couple years ago at the flea market for cheap, so it's not that big of an issue, but I was surprised on how bad the transfer was on the Blu-ray. Absolutely dirty film. Did they even clean it up? Apparently it's from a DVD transfer or something like that. It's just been upscaled to 1080p, you know, like rendered in a higher quality format. But it wasn't cleaned out. It wasn't treated nicely. And for a Martin Scorsese film, you'd think that they'd give it proper dues for Martin Scorsese. I don't know, being Martin Scorsese, the top 10 greatest filmmakers of all time. You'd think they'd do him a better job, but no, apparently not. So, and Gangs in New York is an absolutely fantastic film. If you haven't seen that, I know a lot of people don't really talk about Gangs in New York because it's not kind of like his normal type of films, you know, the mob movies, even though it's kind of is technically a gang, right? It's Gangs in New York, but it's not that kind of, you know, 70s, 50s, 60s type of films that, you know, it's a period piece. He hasn't really done a period piece besides that Liam Neeson film. And yeah, so Gangs in New York, how come we don't have a 4K? It looked fantastic, and we need a reissue. I think it's the 20th anniversary that just passed or so, maybe a year or two. Let me check this up. Yeah, Gangs in New York came out 20 years last year, so I don't know why we don't have a 4K transfer of it. It's blowing my mind that we don't have this film in 4K. Could we please get it? Please. Alright, and the last film on my list is a Criterion release. We've gotten it from Criterion. It's actually a decent transfer. It's just, I feel like we could have gotten a lot more from it, especially from the filmmaking techniques, and that is Barry Lyndon on 4K Blu-ray. We need that. We need that so much. My favorite, I think it's in my top 5. Definitely my top 5 Stanley Kubrick films of all time. We need that on 4K. You know, we have The Shining on 4K, it's fantastic. Full Metal Jacket on 4K, fantastic. We got his earlier films from Kino Lorber. I know Criterion owns the publishing rights for the Blu-ray. Do they still own it on 4K? I'm not too sure, but maybe it's the filmmaking techniques, because I know a lot of people didn't like the what's it called, the Clockwork Orange 4K. Even though I actually liked it, you know, it's the source material that's at fault for it being kind of a gritty type of filmmaking. It's not supposed to be super clean, super fancy, well-lit film. Obviously, it's going to look it's supposed to look a little bit grungy, a little bit grimy, but, you know, I feel like with Barry Lyndon, it's a very nicely shot film with NASA lenses. It was like one of the first, you know, really, you know, big budget films, like big studio films that had no artificial lighting. All of the lighting was either from sunlight or from candles, and it really shows, it really feels it's period piece, and you don't feel like you're watching a film. You feel like you're really just, you're just like a voyeur in like someone's life in like the 15th century or 18th century, something like that. One of those things. We need that on 4K because the Criterion looks okay, but I feel like it could look so much better with HDR, with a nice, really clean, like 8K, 6K transfer. Because I know we got Spartacus on 4K. That's like one of my top, I'd probably say top 10 4K transfers of all time when it comes to film to digital. So we need Barry Lyndon on 4K, one of the greatest films of all time. You know, such an intriguing film and how it was shot and the techniques behind it from Stanley Kubrick, if not one of the greatest, if not the greatest filmmaker of all time. So we need that on 4K. So those are my 5 Blu-rays that need 4Ks. You know, some of them were really bad Blu-ray transfers that really need to upgrade, and some of them were mainly for the legacy aspect of it, getting new 6K, 8K restorations. Because I feel like Spartacus, I know, is a big movie, but I feel like Barry Lyndon is an even bigger film. So if they can do an 8K, or I think it was a 6K transfer from the original camera negative for Spartacus, I feel like they could do the same for Barry Lyndon. Anyways, those are my picks. Let me know down below which Blu-rays or which movies in general do you feel that need a 4K transfer. Anyways, if you enjoyed this video, please make sure to like and subscribe. I'm Mace from the Mockbuster YouTube channel. Please have yourself a good day, night, evening, afternoon, morning. Whenever you're watching this, please stay safe and God bless. Until I see you guys next time, have a good one. Peace.